Hello everyone and welcome back to Wargame Red Dragon. We have a game for you guys today. It's not ranked, despite the Colonel and Brigadier General over on the right. It's just a friendly match between myself and the Brigadier General Quicksilver, who is friend of the channel, friend of the Discord as well. And I do also have a special guest for you guys today, and that is going to be Lord Pi. He's an instructor over on the Bootcamp Discord, which is a great place to learn some strategies for 1v1, and he's been nice enough to take a look at this replay, tell me some things I did right, tell me some things I did wrong, and ways to improve, and I think that's really valuable advice. So Lord Pi, you want to introduce yourself as we get on the way?
Yeah, so hi, as I've been introduced, I'm Lord Pi. You may see me around on boot camp every now and again. And I like to help people out, which is what I'm going to do here.
Gotcha. So this is a Lanja opener into Mudfight, and I hear you're something of an expert on this map. I really only know one way to open from this side, which is fight over the suicide town in the middle of Delta Alpha. And whether or not the game goes well usually depends on how well or poorly this goes. So I'm curious, what are other options here? Am I doing this one correctly from a Landjet perspective? What's going on?
So, there are a few things I would do differently than what you're doing right now. If you'll pause for a quick second so we can point them out. I think the first thing that I would do differently is in the Bravo town, the Delta town, you kind of have two Dragoners sitting there. Not the other one, and to the right.
Oh, yes. Here.
Yeah. You kind of have two Dragoner just sitting here, and I don't think it's particularly useful because if your opponent does push this town in the opener, you can always rotate your main force, and the Dragoner will be better served providing a screen for your 2A5 on the other side of the map.
Gotcha. So not necessarily a requirement here.
Yeah, I think that defending this area with how you're opening is better done in a dynamic fashion rather than committing lots of units there in the opener.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Other than that, I know my Fennec was a little bit too far up there for a minute. I wanted to get some cheeky kills and probably should have landed it so it was immune to anti-air fire, but as we get on the way here... Go ahead.
What you could do, actually, if you want to be really sneaky, the first thing you should do here is your smoke should be moved farther up, so it's behind the town to block off the enemy fire support more.
So back here.
Yeah. And what you could do is you could basically, behind the smoke, or like right behind where the false are, have your helo low hovering there so that anything that comes past the smoke and unload into the town gets hit by the Fennec 20 millimeter.
Like here?
No, like behind the town where your false are.
Oh.
Yeah, you have them like in this area where the road is.
Huh.
And as anything pops out of the smoke when it's pushed farther up, they'll pop into the Fennec 20 millimeter, which can be quite annoying to deal with.
Gotcha. Yeah, I want to give that a try. I might even try that with an escort. I think it would have the autocannon for AP and the rocket pods.
It's amazing with rocket pod planes.
Gotcha.
Especially in armored rocket pod planes.
So the first thing I noticed here, by the way, the reason I'm being aggressive with the 2A5 right now is double T-72S. I think they can definitely give me a pounding, as we just saw right there, but I can give it back, and I shot at the wrong thing, and that was probably a big mistake as well, taking that bad engagement, and then losing the automatic.
Aside from losing the automatic, I think if you came from a little farther back into the right, that would have been better. I don't like putting my 2A5 where you are right now, because there's a very thin hedgerow that you can get stuck on, which is annoying. So kind of in between the two hedgerows is a nice thing to do.
Gotcha. So more like this sort of approach here.
Not even that far to the right, like literally just to this right where your smoke is currently.
Gotcha.
And like this area, I find it easier to play.
Huh. Yeah, fair enough. This was a little bit goofy though. The T-72Ss are playing really close to my falls. And there's a Conqueror's M there as well. So I figured, my opponent has a ton of this stuff just grouped up all in this one section. Let's go ahead around the Fuchs Milans. Now I'm moving the Dragoner up. That should never have been there, but it's in the open field. Like, there's not really much they can accomplish there. And this is going to be a theme for the beginning of the game, really into the mid-game as well. My opponent's planes are really oppressive. So I've lost my automatic, I've lost my anti-air here, and that 25k is looking for a kill on the 2A5. That's down to 1 point in strength. Very nearly gets it.
So at this point, you have to buy an ASF, because with no AA on the field, it's imperative that you deal with his planes ASAP. You don't know when he's actually going to evac, or if he's going to suicide fly a Recon helicopter into you to spot you.
Yeah.
So dealing with the plane spam as soon as possible in this case is important.
I did definitely have buyer's remorse. So the 2A5 came in about I want to say like 7 or 8 seconds before I saw that 25k. And that, I mean, this is more than enough the price of a ASF. And this is something I was talking with a friend of mine, Han DeHun, about with one of his replays recently. Buying tools like an ASF, there are times that you really should, and you know, you get 105 points a minute, so you can build toward it relatively quickly if that's a dedicated, this is what I'll buy next. But it's really hard when you're getting pressured to have the stability of thought to go and make that right decision. And instead I just did something kind of stupid, throwing away the Tiger for nothing into LSTR. So this is a bit of a struggle.
Another little thing is actually kind of technical, if you pause for just a second.
Yes, sir.
So if you look at the town where the Fallschirmjäger and the Motorstreltschi are, there are 4 guys in this town block right now. So while it makes sense that you have the launcher on the falls, the MG on the falls turned off to use the launcher, it can sometimes be a little finicky because the Motorstreltschi might be occupying that town block where you could be shooting at the T-72Ss from.
Yeah.
So when you do this type of micro, you have to be very aware of, after you like right click on the T-72S to kill it, if you're not firing your launcher, that means you can't actually move into that block.
Gotcha.
So it's important at that point to turn the MG back on and get the kill as fast as possible, or else you can lose some infantry.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The T-72Ss, by the way, were both killed by the falls, moving, presenting side armor to the Fallschirmjäger. It was really kind of goofy.
Very cool.
Yeah. It was very cool for me. I think Quicksilver was not so thrilled. We were in voice at the time, just, this was a friendly game, we were chuckling, having a good time of it. It's the sort of stuff that I really like doing on my own Discord, so I haven't really been dropping too many links in the individual videos, but there is always one up on my main page if you're interested in that sort of thing. And I don't know, I just get bullied by playing so hard this game, and when you play with people a lot, you sort of start to expect how they're going to play, and Quicksilver really mixed it up on me, and I don't know, it's very different from playing ranked, I'd say, where you don't know who your opponent's going to be, you don't know what the map's going to be, you don't know what their deck is going to be, all of that unknown stuff here. But yeah, that was a blind fire, by the way. He fire paused my Fallschirmjäger to death.
That sometimes happens.
Yeah.
I think here you can really see like the benefit if you had a KWS instead of a Halo Hunter, because your opponent did lose both of his big tanks, and you have 2 supers on the field. So if you're able to remove his only offensive weapon, which are planes, from the game, you just win. You can play very aggressively, especially because of how far pushed up your Dragoner are. But because you're not willing to make that KWS purchase, or it comes late, then you're kind of going to be continually pressured by planes where you shouldn't be. The number one way to deal with planes, especially when you have just lost your AA and your opponent buys like maybe 200 points in planes, is an ASF.
Gotcha.
Velocity of missile is really important for dealing with it's important for dealing with plane spam.
Gotcha. And like looking at this from neutral, like the field control right now is definitely in my favor. And the other thing too, like this falls by was probably like I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done the helicopter hunter, and instead if I'd bought the ASF like you said, that would be a lot more of a powerful presence in the middle of the field, right?
Right.
And if I can push up, if I can kill the Tor, if I can zone out this Moderna that doesn't have any support, at that point anyway, it does now, but I think that could have been a lot stronger. Then what ends up happening?
KWS is not a question of if, it's a question of when. Because if you have the KWS and you push the 2A5, the Tor dies, and his Moderna call out can just get swarmed by 2A5s and maybe a Peace Run by to finish off the tank.
Which are both healthy right now, but they're being cagey because I know that 25k is rearming as we speak. So, right. I mean, the knowledge of that single plane is really just tying me down pretty hard.
And the way to deal with this at this point, because the pressing moment has passed, is you have to just rebuy your rebuy your AA, have everything set up properly, and at that point you'll be better off. Gotcha. But here, because you kind of you have the roll into his incoming now. We did get the plane. It's a great pickup right there.
Yeah, I don't expect that to happen every time. It's like, there's a reason I like this one. It's 50% accuracy, 4 HE missiles, but I think I still got a crit there. on the second missile. Yeah, I don't know. Luck versus skill, right?
Why be good when you can be lucky?
Because I'm not lucky, that's why.
You just gotta work on that luck stat. Don't worry
Okay.
too much about it.
Man, if I was a D&D character and luck was a stat, it'd be like negative. Straight up negative.
Oh.
Man. So many stories I could tell you.
So, if I were you also right now, what I would try to do, now that you have the roll and twos here, is really see if you can try to actually hold that town. Get an ATGM in, get some recon there, and start applying recon pressure and zoning. Because right now your recon is kind of far out, and you're not going to necessarily be spotting anything that he's trying to hide from you.
So,
So if you
believe
move
it or
that recon
not,
to the left, you'll start spotting his units.
yeah, the Spaderna,
Uh,
or
the Spader, I don't know how you're supposed to pronounce
Spaderna, yeah.
this. Yeah.
These guys? Or the other group?
Yes. If
These
you
guys.
if you move those to the left,
Oh. Jeez, I hate it when it does that. It's like
if
here.
you yeah, or even farther, honestly, you'll start to be able to spot his units more consistently. And when you feel like you can make a jump, when you have your tanks bunched up and you're really pushing hard, you can maybe jump up to the next bush, where he likes to keep his stuff, and apply lots of recon pressure there. But you have to be careful with this.
Gotcha. Yeah, I tend to get my recon infantry killed trying to move them forward too quickly. Instead, just getting the roll in twos kill. Ah, man. That.
Yeah, it's important to get into the habit of radar microing the second that your AA spawns, just in case that your opponent's doing a dry seed run or you forget later on down the road, because it's very, very possible. And you want to limit your ability to make mistakes.
Right, and that was a 100-point mistake right there, which
Right.
that pays for his seed plane, and his seed plane's still alive, so it's going to rearm, it's going to get more value, it's going to get just into a really good position, which I don't want him to be in. And if you look at the difference, like when we turned sideways earlier and we're on neutral, my map presence compared to his versus now, like this has been refreshed, right? It's a very shallow wave, but there's a lot of stuff in it.
And I think part of the problem from your perspective is your M110 buys. Well, I understand why you buy the M110s. Buying 140 points of artillery in this type of position is going to take away from your ground presence. Yes, you do pick up the Thor,
It's a very nice
but I'm not sure
Thor.
how much that's going to actually change the game for you at the moment.
Yeah,
because you don't have any helicopters that you can move in with and cause lots of damage at this point in time.
Yeah, like it was really just I think I can get some points here, which, as you said, I mean, like if I have nothing the Tor can even shoot at, it's a dead buy anyway. So what's the difference to me right now if it's still alive? So
right, those points will be better spent on doing other stuff. And if your opponent plays statically, that AA will be there 5 minutes from now. But in any event, it's just important to play actively and go for more strategic plays as opposed to individual pickups.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good observation. I've been really passive, especially with the 2A5s here, as soon as those planes came out, because I didn't have a tool to answer them. This really hurt, by the way. That was CV-Inf. I marked it, I knew where it dropped off, and then I wasn't able to turn off the Milan 2 before he aimed and fired at the Ural. So now Quicksilver's going to see that, oh shoot, this was spotted, and that CV-Inf is going to just hightail it, and I have no idea which way it's running right now. So could have gotten a nice pickup with the M110s if I hadn't have given away my position, but I don't know. And at that point, I would say it definitely would have been maybe not a good purchase because, if it's bad and it works, it's bad and you're lucky, right?
It would have been more understandable though, because getting a tick on Mudfight is pretty important.
Right. So the proper way to have gotten these would have been if I wasn't spotted there, if I watched that CV-Inf come in, and then purchased the tools to kill it. That would have been more proper.
And if you want to be extra fancy, what you can do is you spot his units by the M110s, and then you pull your infantry back to unspot it. That way, this is not going to be applicable in this case, but could be in other cases. That way, he has a harder time seeing if he's actually spotted or not.
Gotcha.
Because his units are blinking, so they're supposedly hidden.
So I have a question for you. When I have a forward position here and then it gets a little bit pressured, I often end up with things like this Milan 2 that just has no ATGMs left. How can I resupply that, or is it even possible?
So at this point in time, resupplying it is a little bit dicey because you don't have control of Alpha Town. and without control of Alpha Town, you're not going to be able to get a supply truck anywhere near there. So what I would try to do is I would either try to A, get control of Alpha Town if you think there's not too much stuff there, or B, hope and pray that your Milan doesn't get spotted and try to play counter recon, and instead focus on taking Alpha so that it's hard to resupply Alpha Town.
Gotcha. And I should title this video 2A5 takes a nap. This thing's been here for the last like 7 or 8 minutes.
Yeah, so when I really had this problem, when I don't know if I was your skill level, but somewhere around this area, what I would basically end up telling myself is if a unit is sitting still and doing nothing and serving no purpose, it might as well be dead.
Yeah.
So even if the KD is perfectly even, but you have a super heavy just sitting there doing nothing, you're basically down 170 points on KD, or you might as well be.
Yeah.
Playing active will let you really flex your any KD advantage that you have on your opponent. So it's really, really important to make sure that your units aren't sitting there and might as well be dead.
Gotcha. So let me just say what was going through my head here. We can see the buys coming in right now. I figured, you know what? The middle ground has not gone so well for me. I do have a position here that I'm going to scooch forward as time progresses. Let's just make use of these Fallschirmjäger, make use of the Martyr 2s, and I'm pretty sure that the Martyr 2s and M41A1s will just absolutely wreck Vidras and SPWs and infantry like that in the woods here. And I figured, you know what? If he wants to fight me in Alpha, yeah, okay, let's fight in Alpha. I think that'll go a lot more my way. I don't know if that's necessarily true. I know Eastern Bloc has some good tools, like the Formosa and the Specjalny Jednotki 90, but it was just kind of what was running through my head. What do you think of that?
I think it's a perfectly fine idea, because you will perform better than him in a grind, because you have Fallschirmjäger, you have MG3s and Martyr 2s, which will outclass everything that he has. So I like your purchase here. I like your idea. My main gripe, though, is the fact that you still haven't dealt with these planes.
Yeah.
Like right now you have, unless I'm missing something, no AA on the field.
Nope. 3 different zones, 14 minutes in, 0 AA pieces in the entirety of the field. In fact, I think I even lost the Helo Hunter.
Credit is due, though. You have bought AA.
I just can't keep it alive. Oh, man.
So, if I want to be kind of silly, I could say just don't lose your AA next time.
No, I mean,
it's not very helpful.
No, it is helpful, though, and it's helpful because of the thing that you said earlier with if you bring in Radar AA, micro it the second it pops into the field. I didn't, and that cost me a lot of pain. So there are lessons to be learned there for sure, which is what this is all about, right? This is the reason that we look at replays, other than, you know, getting some entertainment in the middle of a workday or something like that. It's to figure out what we did wrong and try and do something better with it. So,
right.
Especially on Jednotki pushing up the Dragoner, I figured at this point I was probably going to lose all the infantry here because I had no real way of projecting force into Delta anymore.
So the way that you can prevent this is by making sure that you get an ATGM into Delta Town to make it harder for him to move his vehicles around. But as is right now, when there's no zoning capabilities at all in Delta, and the only ATGM you have is out of out of ammo, then he can do whatever he wants with his vehicles, which is a problem for you.
Yeah.
So always having an ATGM in Delta is important. It's something you should always do.
I'm almost tempted next time to like really just switch the position on these two.
Yes.
Because then if I lose this town, the Milan 2 can just walk its way backwards and I can resupply it and walk its way forward. And the Spadurna will get more recon then.
Additionally, if these positions are switched right now, it's going to be harder to spot the Milan 2.
Right.
And as such, it will be more effective.
Plus, as long as you can still reach, this is even a better angle for guaranteeing side shots than being closer up, where you're going to hit the front armor on the approaching column a bit more.
Yep.
He gun-runned me there, and I took personal offense to this. I told him as much in the middle of the match. I was like, you just, wait, no.
Like, at this point, buy an ASF. When your opponent's gun running you like this, that means that their plane is going to be somewhere close by after the gun run, because they'll be popping up from the dive.
This is ASF, right? No?
This is ASF at home.
Yeah. ASF if you needed it for a third the price and a tenth of the performance.
Exactly. Great Helo Hunter. ASF?
Yeah, for a while.
I like what you're doing with the Fallschirmjäger and Alpha, going all the way around. I don't think enough people do this, where a lot of people play too narrow in Alpha, but playing wider is a much harder front to deal with because you're always behind them and pushing in front, especially when you have tanks there. It's a lot harder to deal with. So I like what you're doing here by playing wide into Alpha.
Cool. This is actually one thing I know a lot of people like to do with Moto. I love to do this with Mac, because if you get a firing concave like here, 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 it's insane. And you do it with cheap autocannons like the 10-point autocannon, transports, and some Gewehrmen. And I mean, even if they pull out tanks, your side armor is going to get penned by short range autocannon fire. It really can be pretty brutal. So that's what I was missing at this point, and I figured, you know, I don't have that. I'll make do with what I can. Fallschirmjäger can still do a really nice job here. I don't know. It was the one position on the map where I felt kind of comfortable trying to make the best of a bad situation, right? So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get him to pull his Moderna over, and I wanted to get the Moderna kill with some Fallschirmjäger. So.
And another little thing you can do with the Fallschirmjäger in this position, if you want to set a trap for your opponent, if their Moderna is pushed forward and is kind of in this middle forest where the layers of Alpha are, you can use your M110s to M110 the Moderna and to try to push him back into the falls. Yeah.
That's really
clever. It's a pretty common technique that I like to use.
I will bear that in mind, because I imagine it would work on me if I didn't know to expect it. Because you see that incoming Artie and you go, man, I don't really want to lose my tank to some artillery. And retreat seems like the best way to do it. I guess that does rely on having cleared out the backline a little bit, or your opponent being overzealous.
You do have to do that when everything is happening all at once. It can be hard for your opponent to keep track of this, especially when they have to micro their tank against another tank at the same time as worrying about M110s and something sneaking, and maybe because you activity on the right hand side of the map where you happen to have a presence here. Yeah. It can be a lot to mentally process, and putting your opponent through this process multiple times increases the chances that they'll make a mistake.
Yeah. Speaking of the right, this is an overbuy. But really early on in the game, I lost my M41 A1s up here, and I didn't realize that they traded. So I thought that they'd just been straight up killed, and my immediate response was, okay, I don't want my opponent back behind my lines in Echo. That's why I've sort of overbought on this side with the M41A1s. Like, the answer to this was better micro and knowing what went on over here, and I just didn't see it. So
another thing on that right hand side as well is a lack of AA. Like, if your opponent were to basically buy 2 Hinds and have an ASS tripling, you just lose Foxtrot.
Yeah, which is not recommended.
Yep. Like, you should not be giving up this level of air control to your opponent.
Yeah, and we can see the results, right? This is a bit of a dive looking for that seed plane that I thought might have, gone in a little too far, but we don't actually get him. So we got 1 hit, not enough to get the kill.
Here, a KWS would have been better because the ECR is something you buy when you have strike planes that you want to use to protect them. But you don't have that at this point in time, and those points could have just been better spent on the KWS.
Yeah, I think what was running through my head, and I'm not saying this is correct, there's a difference between justification and explanation, and this is very much explanation, not justification, was to build that up and then go in and make sure that I had something to take out my opponent's tours. Because we've seen one, we killed one, we saw another, and the last thing I want to do is buy that strike plane and lose it. So we're making a move in Alpha. I'm moving some Fallschirmjäger over here as well into the town before Charlie, and I figured you'd probably have comments about this, but
yeah,
the timing also was something where I wouldn't have done this if I wasn't also pushing somewhere else.
I think with the Fallschirmjäger it's a little excessive because you don't get too many of those, especially because you haven't upvetted, and having those behind the lines in Alpha could have been a lot more significant of a problem for your opponent to deal with. So, like, yes, you are cutting off the reinforcement. Yeah, just hovering in this area because he can't keep tanks here anymore.
Gotcha.
And you don't know if he has tanks there or not, but he might. And it can just be a very easy way to get some good kills.
Gotcha. As it is
very valuable to cut off the reinforcements, definitely. But I think other infantry that you have more of would have been better here.
Yeah. Another thing too that I think makes the falls not well suited to this is if I had something with a 875-meter launcher, that would be really, really amazing in this position. But the 700 is like just barely good enough to do things. 875, I pop up here and kill the Tor. But yeah, you can only use the tools you have. Speaking of, I really thought this would go better in the middle. I think my Martyr 2s were out of position, and because of that, they sort of became like unsupported Martyr 2s. As good as this vehicle is, it just becomes a 60-point target for your opponent. And that's a good way to lose games, is to lose the Martyr 2s. They get panicked, they get stunned, they get hit by Mi-17s, and because I have no anti-air up here, what should be easy kills in the Mi-17s just doesn't end up being that way. So looking over at the right hand side here, we have 89, soon to be 90 points for Quicksilver, 13 points for me. Things are looking pretty grim. Alright, 17 minutes in, I've lost the control of the center of the board. I wasn't able to get tick on it when I had it. And this is, if you had to put money right now on who wins this game, would it be on me or on Quicksilver?
I don't think you're doing so hot, to say the least.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Recognition of that, I think, is never a bad thing. Even in the middle of the game, you don't have to surrender if you're not doing well. You just, awareness of that state can help you make some different decisions. So, including to be sneaky.
Another comment that I'd like to make, when you're talking about the Martyrs being unsupported, another reason why you had trouble here is because your 2A5 was kind of chilling in the middle of nowhere earlier. Now it's moved up.
Well, now it's chilling in the middle of nowhere behind the front line up here. It's like it's still, yeah. I fired one shot from this thing.
Progress.
Baby steps.
It's in a better position now.
Yeah.
But if this was playing more actively, you would not have had as hard of a time. And I think that's one of the big things to take away from here. The importance of just active play as a means of applying, as the only means of applying significant pressure.
Gotcha. One thing I'd like to point out, we did see a command tank there in Delta. Previously, I'd thought that it might have been over here with the enemy Jeep that I saw, but it is a command tank, and Landjet has some pretty nice tools to take out command tanks. So, also with the fact that I knew that the falls killed the Tor, I figured my planes could get in regardless. And one thing, I don't know if you saw this earlier, this is an upvet MLU. I know it's not necessarily the popular way to take it in Landjet, but I do it so that it can double as a ASF if absolutely necessary. Still probably the wrong buy, but...
Well, in my personal opinion, I think it makes more sense to do this type of purchase, to make this type of deck choice in Landjet over Scandi, because you have peace shrines as well, if you decide to take those.
Yeah.
So it's not your only anti-tank plane. Whereas in Scandi, I can see much more justification for down betting. But in Landjet, I think up betting is actually the right move.
Oh, fair enough. This was pretty unfortunate. Trapped between a Moderna and Formosa, Live Garden are going to struggle. And then I did lose 2 planes on that engagement, I think actually to FJB or LSTR. Yeah, LSTR here, and LSTR here, so that many Iglas can definitely take down planes. If you see Eastern Bloc, keep that in mind. Same if you see Baltic, people will use Erquizjekri, and they can shoot down your planes if you're not careful. So, Specialny spot my Fuchs. I didn't notice that they spotted my Fuchs, and we're gonna have immediate pain from this as Quicksilver is gonna come in here and just, yeah, he knows where it is. He has a rocket pod plane or a thermomig or something like that, and I should have already been moving. I didn't think he saw it, and if I had known that he saw it, if I'd been looking there to see it was spotted, we might have been able to avoid this and avoid losing all of that value. So now, let's just do a quick recap here. Quicksilver has Charlie, Delta, Alpha, I have Foxtrot, we both have our home zones. He's ticking +2, 14.5 minutes left, and he's up 100 points. Not a banner day. Not a banner day, to say the least. And the thing is, too, like, I lost the 2A5 on this side, and just like we didn't even really see it happen because of what was going on in the replay earlier, I didn't really notice it happening until it was too late on the field. So all that time we had it sitting there doing nothing, and then it comes up and gets immediately popped. That felt pretty bad, to say the least.
And I think on that note as well, this is another reason why it's really important to actively play with your tanks. because tanks are expensive and they have crappy stealth, um, they're very easy to lose to AT planes or to infantry that's sneaking up on you if you have them just sitting still. But if instead you're actively playing with them, then you know where they are, and
This
it's gonna
is a
be
little
harder
goofy.
for you to lose tanks this way.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We did just see they're up on the top, by the way, as well. The Formosa got kind of stuck between town blocks. Ordinarily, the Fallschirmjäger should probably have been dead or at least severely injured by that. Um, sorry, I probably should have paused there because your note on the 2A5 is a very good one. So actually, if you just want to say it again while we're thinking about it.
Yeah, this is kind of more about how tanks are terrible defensive units, but also why active play, if we're talking more generally, is so important with tanks. Because tanks have, bad stealth, they're very easy to spot. And if Stevie Wonder can see your tanks, then you have a problem due to infantry sneaking, you have a problem due to any sort of anti-tank playing, and that's not even counting the fact that, your tank is sitting there not doing anything, so it might as well be dead.
Gotcha.
So as a means of keeping your tanks alive, if you can actively micro them, that's a great way to do it.
So, moving on from that, at this point in the game, I kind of made the decision to say, okay, you know what? We're going to have some fun here. Remember, this is a friendly game as well, not a serious ranked game. And I figured at this point, if I didn't do something cheeky, I was really going to struggle. So we have a block 5. It's coming in, looking for the command tank from my opponent. We do actually get it as well. So this guy was repositioning. He's repositioning no longer. And that means alpha, at least, will not be capped for my opponent. We also did the same thing over here and smacked the command tank over. Oh, that's the Tor. We smacked a command tank over here as well. So Delta and Alpha are gone. MLU getting a little bit over his head here, but I was looking for... This is a 2 veterancy Ural, which often means that it's a CV infantry. So I was sitting there going, okay, if I can pick that up too, if I can kill 3 command vehicles in the span of about a minute, that at least will make my opponent sweat a little bit. And winning the mental game, even 3/4 through the game, can cause massive shifts before the end of the match. So that was the intention there. It didn't really quite work out. I mean, got 2 out of 3, but yeah, close is for horseshoes and hand grenades, not for Wargame. So yeah, and then from this point, I figured, you know what? I have this stuff sitting here. There's no point to it just sitting there. We're just going to move forward. We're going to see what we see. If it gets success, great. If it runs into a Conquer's M team, okay, not ideal, but we'll do what we can. And then there's still Moderna here, but I didn't think that Quicksilver would really be that aggressive with it because taking tanks in here is a nice way for them to die. So I really don't see too many people do that. If you were Quicksilver... Sorry?
It's important. I'd like to talk about if you want to pause for a second.
Yeah.
So on this map, you have to be very careful about putting your super heavy into alpha from either side. The reason why is when you take your super heavy too far outside of delta, you can potentially get sidelined by attacks on the other side of the map and not be able to react in time. So for example, because your opponent has a super heavy in alpha, they can't actually have that presence in delta and apply pressure in delta, or pushing past it in those pushing past into from delta into like the T forest and rectangle forest. They can't defend against that.
Gotcha.
If you had instead done this, and it's Quicksilver making the play, if your tank is an alpha, he can maybe push into Delta Town or push Foxtrot hard. So it's important. You have to be very careful taking super heavy too far off the line, off of this kind of main road in Delta, or else things like this can happen. If
Gotcha.
you can even just directly push Square Forest and just try to zone out the super heavy with ATGM placements. So that's, I think, a mistake on Quicksilver's end by keeping the super heavy so far in that forest.
Gotcha, and I'm just going for it as well. So I have a block 5, I have a upvet MLU looking for that Polish MiG, and yeah, losing the block 5, trading it for the Polish MiG, I think is not the worst trade. And then we do damage the Moderna, but we don't get the kill. So I'd say probably about even. I have a second one of the cluster planes, and I think that was our second kill on the Polish MiGs. That's the entire card. If not, it's certainly just, 135 points for 115. It's sort of a bit of a wash. Now, I'd change my tune if I no longer had any anti-tank planes, but I still have the other cluster plane, I still have the MLU, we do still have tools there. And then this was something, when you watched this replay before we recorded, I think this sort of confused you a little, right?
Yeah, if it were me, I'd personally try to play the Fallschirmjäger more so in alpha and kind of play sneaky behind the lines like we talked about a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Because these are expensive. You don't get that many of them, and I think they might have been better used to do that instead of kind of what you're doing right now.
Gotcha.
As a more statistically successful type of play.
That's entirely fair. And then the tiger, I was just looking for a CV kill, honestly. Like I knew that there was CV imps somewhere back here because we saw them unload. And if I could get close enough, we'll get rocket pods online, we'll get the snebs shooting in, and a single volley should be able to kill 5 strength infantry, no problem. So we do get that. Yep, there it is. Charlie's gone, and then if you notice, the Fallschirmjäger up here did die. They killed something. Yeah, they killed a Recon tank here, and then they did die. And because of that, my opponent, I think, thought I had more back there in Bravo than I did. And I mean, if you see a Tiger, if you see Fallschirmjäger, and you have all of your stuff halfway across the map, it's a very understandable moment of, oh shit, am I actually in trouble here, right? So I do understand.
And especially right now, because if you can keep this +1, you will you should actually have just enough points to win. So your opponent does have to be very worried about this, and their CV count is a general rule of thumb at this point in time, because they have lost quite a few CVs, they've lost a lot of planes, and it is a genuine worry, even though you happen not to have anything in his spawn right now.
If you want to see the world's drunkest pilot, here it is. So my MLU was coming this way. I right-clicked on the MiG, and he turned to the right, off the map. And then I right-click on it again. He gets the first drop on me because I was turned that way. And then here, I click on the Moderna. Not on this MiG, on the Moderna. And we turn. And we arc toward the other MiGs. And I was like, wait, no. Okay, I figured it was going to die there, but if I could have gotten the kill on the Moderna, that's what it, like... I do not understand airplane pathing sometimes. It seems like there's some weird optimization on turning radius, and it tends to be a little bit unreliable at best, shall we say. So Block 5 is going in, looking for that other Moderna if I can get him, looking for the MiG if I can't. And to my bit of a frustration, usually that Block 5 is pretty reliable. And I rolled a high number of misses on this one, on his cluster bomb. So it was a right click. It very well could have been a kill, and it turns out it wasn't. CF-104 getting a second kill in the air. I love these guys.
And the KWS is here.
Yeah, the KWS, finally. Finally. So, we got that. We're fighting the air presence, and all of a sudden, yeah, this could be worse, right? So, the +1's unfortunately gone. We saw the second CV Jeep coming up here. So I figured there's command infantry somewhere along Charlie, along the front part of it. And this is probably where the largest unforced error of the entire game comes in, from either player, mind you. So my falls are still alive here, we capture some supply trucks, and Bravo decaps, right? And if you notice, there's napalm that's healing here. I never had anything here, right? I never had anything in these town blocks. But because Quicksilver thought I did, here comes the Führungsstrupp. And in response to seeing these guys move up, I turn off the guns on the Fallschirmjäger. So they're on right now, they're gonna get turned off, and I figured, let's let him walk as close as possible. That way he can't get out of range when I have the Fallschirmjäger start shooting. So that was the idea there. And if I can decap his spawn, that's not the worst thing, because he has only one other command infantry, and it's in Charlie. I know I have Fallschirmjäger between him and home. And I have another Tiger as well, so I have Tiger around this way that's coming forward, and I figured this might be a way to just win on CVs, right? So yeah, Fallschirmjäger,
I think this is an example of outthinking yourself and not playing yourself here, because the right way for a Quicksilver at this point to clear Bravo, if he is truly this worried, is to just buy a Recon helicopter and fly it through. Yeah. If he spots nothing, great, there's nothing there most likely. If he spots something, well, he found the problem.
Yeah, I mean, 2 thermomig
buys. Yeah, but when trying to be so clever, he ends up outplaying himself here.
Which is certainly something I've done before as well. Like it'll happen, and the only thing that you can do is just kind of kick yourself a little bit when it does. So we get the Führungstruppe in Bravo. That's command infantry dead there. Now there's no reinforcements. There's no air zone at all for Red 4. And my immediate response is helicopters. Fennec 20 mils, Fennec TOW, and even if the Sokol has missiles left, I have a Tiger back here. We might kill it. It'll use missiles anyway. The Fennec TOWs will be too much health for it to take down. And this was a little goofy. I landed. I get killed by BMPs. This is entirely deserved. Oh man. Kind of makes you think of Rookie Tourney a little, doesn't it?
Well, it's actually a trick I use all the time. Not in this case because I would lose a Tiger, but whenever you have two A helicopters coming toward each other, if you know the other person's not going to stop and you can land in time, what can happen is they're not going to get all their missiles off, and they'll keep on charging toward you while you can keep on shooting them because they're in the air. It's a neat little trick I use all the time when I have K-52s or Tigers or Ninjas, and I can catch a lot of people off guard. Now, in this case, it's not going to work because, there are two BMP-1s there, but it's a neat little trick.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And we also do see that out-of-place Moderna still up in Alpha, not really doing anything, right? So he's an island unto himself at this point. And the one that matters is the one that's back here. We are going to stun it again with a gun run, and then, yeah, block 5 right to the face.
I think this is beautiful. I'd love to see this.
Yeah, Fennec 20 mil. We spot the Führungsgruppe. I have the second Fennec 20 mil as well. And, to their credit, they're putting up a pretty good fight. They are the shock infantry. And with that, we will wipe the last CV infantry off the field, and that ends the game. So, yeah. Lord Pie, do you have any closing thoughts before we call it a day?
Yeah, I think there are two big things to take away from this game. The first thing to take away from this game, first lesson rather, is how to deal with planes more effectively. When someone loses their tanks and they have only planes in the field, getting an ASF up fast is important, and taking air control from them quickly is very important, because you take away their only mechanism to actually fight back against you that they currently have. And I think the second important lesson to take away from this is the importance of active play. Units that aren't playing active might as well be dead. And if they're dead, that means you're down on KD potentially. Additionally, with certain units like tanks, it's often easier to defend them if you're playing actively, because you're not vulnerable to sneaking or plane purchases or your own human mistakes if you can't focus on everything all at once.
Gotcha.
So I think those are the two big things to take away.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you for joining me for the recording tonight. I really appreciate it. And I'll be on boot camp. We'll hang out some as soon as I can, all right?
No problem. I'm glad I could help.